So usually what I've been using is just the hydraulic grade line plotting, and we'll go ahead and uncheck that other one. We've got the hydraulic grade line. So let's look at another profile. I'm going to save my settings here, and I think I want to change the hydraulic grade line to be red. So I'm going to change that. And I'm going to go ahead and save that file back out. So we'll look at a specific profile just at the very end there and see how that is working out. So this one looks pretty good. You will see, since I did toggle on display drainage crossings, you are going to see a couple of pretty large red circles here. This is where we have the pipes interconnected to inlets across the road. So this is at S211. There's another circle here at S207. And then I think that might be all of them. So that's plotting these pipes that are cutting across the road here. That's plotting these pipes here. So we'll do another profile, but we'll have that profile just be, actually probably don't even have to do it because we have our S211 here and then we've got our S211 out. So we really don't have to do that. We've already got that profile toward the end of our segments here. And we kind of felt that I felt this pipe would, at some point in some of these exercises, I thought I remembered that this ended up calculating out at about 30 inches on that pipe. It looks like the 18 works though. Looks like the 18 works just fine there for this pipe at the very end out toward our outfall. So it looks like it's in pretty good shape. Now what you can do here, if you look on page 7-8, normally we're kind of trained in, and we think of this profile as, you know, this is just a static drawing. But what you're going to see is that if we go here on the top of page 7-8 and we go to this link profile tab, we can actually do quite a bit of editing here as if it were a spreadsheet. So this would be a really good way to do some edits and get rid of some of those warnings potentially. So you can edit this as a spreadsheet. So I can go in here and maybe I decide that pipe 202 needs a different invert. So I can check on invert, change that invert. When you hit apply, it does recalculate the system. You can see that you can also change those sizes. So I could go here and I want to make sure that I'm at the right pipe. There's a little ID button. So you can click ID. I can pick this pipe at the end and I can go ahead and change the size of this pipe right here. So I can say, you know what, for some reason I'm really wanting that to be a 30-inch pipe. I can hit apply. You're going to see it go and recalculate the network. It may give me some warnings. And then when I close out of that, that pipe's been recalculated and redrawn. I want to change that same, maybe I want that pipe to be a 12-inch pipe. Hit apply. It's going to recalculate that network. I'm going to get more warnings because that's probably going to be a problem. And it's going to redraw that pipe. So now I've got the hydraulic grade line coming out of the top of that pipe. 12 inch is not going to work. So you can actually do a lot of editing here right inside of the profile tool. I'm not having to dig way back there and go into the link editor, recalculate the network, and go through all those steps. As soon as I hit apply here, that's happening automatically for me. So this ends up being a really good tool for editing. The only thing I don't like about it is you can't really lengthen this dialog box so that you can see more than 3 pipes at a time in the spreadsheet section. You can move the columns and resize them. I haven't found a way that you can stretch this dialog and get a little more room there in the middle. So you can go in and you can edit these manually. What is this structure here? That's S211. I can go in here and I can change this invert. It's 24 right now, 24.2. I want to make it 23.5. Hit apply. Goes ahead and recomputes that network, and it goes ahead and redraws everything here. Now you are seeing a little gap. This orange line that I have here is the proposed elevations, or the proposed project, roadway project. And you're going to see that all your structures are quite a bit lower than the proposed grade for our project. The reason for that is back here when we did, I believe it's in the nodes, on the elevations for the nodes, we set the minimum depth to be 3. So that's why all of those structures look like they're 3 foot lower than they should be. So that probably should be fixed. We're not going to fix it. I'm just showing you why it's happening. Now, is that exactly 3? I'm not sure. We can put back on the grid here for the vertical, and I'll make my minor interval 1 foot. So, yeah. Looks like it's more like a foot here. So there's 35. That's 30, so 31, 2, 3. Looks like it's more like a foot, maybe half a foot lower than that existing. So that may be perfectly fine. These are mostly all curb inlets, you can think of that as this is probably the top of the curb here, and then that's probably our curb inlet. They're actually probably fine. So I'll just turn off the grid there. So on this link profile, you can edit it like a spreadsheet. It's not really showing that part in the book. In the book, what we're seeing here is we can ID any one of these links. Just single click on it. It's going to take you to that particular pipe. And then underneath here in the details section, you actually have these little tiny buttons here for the inverts. That's called Edit Invert. It doesn't show you this icon except it's highlighted here in the dialog box on step number 3. So if you click this button here that says Edit Invert and go up, you'll have to actually touch on this little circle, and you can move this pipe up and down physically. So I'm gonna move this pipe up just a little bit, left click to place it, hit apply, and it's going to go ahead and recalculate the network. So we can edit this dynamically as well. Now, since it is a graphical tool, you can mess things up really quickly. Just kind of be careful. The trick here in working with these is you click the icon and then you have to go up and you've got to touch the little circle before anything's going to move. If you move it and you decide you don't want to move it, right click and it'll go back to where it was before. There's not an undo though. Once you hit apply, that's it. So you've got to click on the little icon and then you can move it up or down, hit apply, and then that network is going to get recalculated and redrawn. Now the highlight on these, or the pipe on these, a lot of times does kind of stick. You can see that my pipe here is stuck. Usually that highlight will go away if you close out the profile and just zoom in or out. Once you move a pipe, that highlight will kind of stick there sometimes. And then another way that we can modify these, if I reopen my profile here by editing it, is on the link profile, if I left click on one of the rows and click this 2 pieces of paper icon that you're going to see on the top of 7.9. Oh, actually that one's for when you make changes down here at the bottom, I think. So let's change this to 28. And then when you hit modify, yeah. So that little button there at the top of page 7.9, once you type something down here at the bottom, you have to click that little modify button to make it go up and change it actually. And then that's going to move it on screen, but you still have to click apply to recalculate the system. So this seems like, I won't call it a simple profile tool because it has tons and tons of options, but it's much more than just drawing a profile. This is a really good set of editing tools here built right in that link profile section. We can type different numbers and hit modify. We can go ahead and modify the invert with these little icons. It's a real good editing tool. And it's not just editing that profile. The drawing obviously changing is going to be the most obvious thing that you're going to see, but it's also recalculating that whole drainage system. So we'll go ahead and get restarted here. And where we had left off, there's a big note in the middle of 7.9 that talks about when we are modifying these profiles that we have, and we're using this link profile section to modify those. It is recalculating and modifying and updating our drainage system. Now, we don't have to have it do that. This was way back on yesterday under our project preferences. Underneath the updates, this checkbox here at the bottom where it says automatic update network on profile edit, that is what's causing that profile to go ahead or the drainage system to go ahead and recalculate an update for us. And that's pretty powerful. We purposely had that on so it would go ahead and update for us. Now what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and check for utility conflicts. We've got this profile. We want to see where we might have conflicts, in this case with some existing utilities. So we're going to go here up to our main. You can leave the profile tool open. And we're going to go up to our main menu under utilities. And we're going to go ahead, component. And we're going to go ahead and pick miscellaneous utilities. And we're going to pick add. So you're back under your component menu. And you're picking component miscellaneous utilities add. And then the miscellaneous utility, we're going to call it existing underscore, I'll just call it underscore utils. Not exactly positive, but I think it doesn't like spaces in that name. So that's why we're using the underscore. So as a general rule, don't use spaces in this. That's why they have existing underscore utilities, or I have underscore utils. Sorry, let me turn off this email thing. No one needs that, probably including me. And we'll go ahead and click OK. And this is where we build what we want it to search for as far as what we're calling existing utils. So we're going to have an existing sanitary force main utility in our project. And what we do is we fill out this bottom portion, and then we click this little tiny piece of paper icon on the right hand side to add that as a list item. Then if we need to modify it, we click on the item in the middle of the list. That pushes the information down to the bottom. We change the information on the bottom, and we click this second little icon that comes up here, which is modify list item. So we're going to have the alignment is going to be set to element, and then that prompt is going to change from picking the chain to going out and finding a certain type of symbology. And that symbology, if we double click on it, is going to be, this is what it's looking for, is going to be on the level sanitary B, and you might have to change your level filters for it to find this. So you're probably going to have to change your level filters to all levels, and then go back and double click on that preview again. Then you should be able to click that pull down, and if we scroll long and far enough here, we're going to be able to find that sanitary B underscore EP. And it might be a little different. I think some of these levels have changed since the book was written. Let's go into the UTEX file and we'll change that. That might be a little bit better way to do it. One thing that we're seeing here is that if we have older survey files or older utility files, we may run into an issue with the levels because those levels have changed. So this is the old level, and then the level it's looking for is like sanitary FM underscore B. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into my utils folder, and I'm going to open up that UTEX RD03. We'll see if we can assign it the more correct level. I think this would be a better way to do it than my initial thought. My initial thought, which would work, is just go ahead and set it to that sanitary level and then just draw it right into our drainage file. But that's really probably not the right way to go about it. So I'm going to switch here to the UTEX RD03 file. You may get a warning about the feature database. That's fine. And then I'm going to go here and select this green line. It's all one single line segment. And then I'm going to go ahead and see if I can find a good correct level to put that on. So we'll put that on, probably this is the one it's changed to. Sanitary FM force main underscore B. So the underscores are the level of accuracy that the utility was collected at. B is that it was probably all the nodes were located survey-wise in 3D. C is, I believe, underground location. D is from the utility plans that you might have. And then there's a level of A. A is you actually dug a hole and got your hands on it. You know exactly where it's at. So I'm going to change that to the level sanitary FM underscore B. And I'm just going to hover over that and make sure it did change it. So all I did, this is standard microstation. I selected our green line here, went up to my level pull down, and picked sanitary FM underscore B. That's probably the better way to fix it, rather than us drawing some type of fake line in that drainage file. So go ahead and set that, and then if you'll go back to your previous drawing, that file should still be referenced in. And now if we hover over that, it should be that sanitary FM underscore B underscore EP. And that hopefully will let us create our utilities correctly here. All right, so back to our component menu here. We're going to pick Component, Miscellaneous Utilities. Since it probably did already save those miscellaneous utilities, you'll probably have to pick Edit. And then it's going to reopen, and it's going to open up with the ID that we had before, existing underscore utils. So now, if we set the alignment to element, we should be able to right click and say by element, and let's see if it'll let us pick it. Still won't let us pick it physically, but if we double click, we should be able to pick, and you might have to do your filters, but we should be able to pick that sanitary FM. So I'm going to go ahead and just set the filter here to all levels, and then double click. And we'll scroll down. And we're going to set this to sanitary FM underscore B underscore EP. And it should be color by level, style by level, and weight should be by level. So now they should match up. So that's what we want to search for. And then what we do is we need to pick what the elevation source for this is going to be. So this is This is not using 3D elements. This is taking this 2D element and we're making a guess that it has a certain amount, minimum amount of cover that's required. So for our elevation source, we're going to click the pull down and pick tin file. And we want to pick with this magnifying glass from our survey folder, not the proposed tin file. You want to go into your survey folder and you want to pick the existing tin file. And we're going to give it a size. This is in feet. So we're saying this is a 12-inch force main. So the size is 1 foot. And then we're going to say the offset is -4. So wherever this line is found, wherever this symbology is found, it's going to assume it's a size of 1 foot all the way and that it's 4 foot below the existing ground everywhere it's at. That it's not going to be absolutely correct. It's the best that we can do with the information that we have. Now, once you've filled out all this bottom information here, you need to go at the top of page 710 and make sure you click this little piece of paper icon on the right-hand side, which is Add List Item. Excuse me. If you ever need to modify this, you click on this item in the middle of the dialog in the list. It pushes it down to the bottom of the dialog, and you make your changes, and you hit the second little piece of paper icon to modify and update the list. Now, we're only doing the sanitary one here. You might have a dozen different utilities that you're trying to plot on that profile. So this tool here does have a files menu, and if you pick files, you can do a save as, and I'll put that in my drainage folder, and we're just going to save it as exist_utils. That way, if I spend quite a bit of time filling out 5 or 6 or 12 different items here, I can go directly to this dialog box, hit Files Open, and then reload the UTL file. It's not really necessary for ours. We're just doing the one here. The easiest thing to mess up on as you're working with this and editing it is changing it at the bottom and forgetting to hit that second icon there on the right-hand side, Modify List Item. The other thing that's real easy to make a mistake on, excuse me, is on the offsets. Make sure you always put a negative on the offsets. It's going to be relative to that tin file, and it's negative. It's below that surface. And you'll see here, if you look on page 7-10, step number 6, they go ahead and do save that. They called theirs utility conflicts. And once we've got it all set up and saved, we can go ahead and close this dialog box. It's going to ask you, do you want to save list changes? Hit yes. And it'll go ahead and remember those settings for us. So now, in step 9, we're going to go back to our drainage profile. If you didn't keep that dialog box open, you'll have to go back to Component, Profile, and then Edit List. You'll pick your profile and click OK. And then if you'll go to Display, what you're going to see now is there's now under Miscellaneous Utility Crossings, this ID of existing utils shows up. But to activate it, you have to check on the check mark, and then you'll double click in here to set the symbology. Set it to whatever symbology you want to. If you want to save that out like we've been doing and updating it in our drainage folder, you're more than welcome to do that. That way we don't have to reinvent it later. And all you have to do here is hit Apply, and it should add that existing utility on here somewhere. It may not, because if we look at the overall layout here, it's really not crossing any of our drainage pipes. If you look at where that green line cuts through here, it does cut through the area S200, but it's not cutting through or hitting any of our drainage pipes or structures. So what I think you're going to find here is you're not going to get anything additional perhaps on this profile, because this profile starts here at S200. That sanitary line is back over here on the left-hand side. So I don't think you'll get anything additional there on your profile view. Because if you look at where that line cuts through the areas, it's not cutting through a pipe or a structure or anything. So what I would recommend, so that we can make sure this is working, and it may give me an issue here, but I'm going to hover over this sanitary line here. I'm going to right click on it and hold down my right mouse button, and I'm going to activate that drawing and move that line so it does cut through one of the pipes or one of the structures. So I'm hovering over this green line from the UTEX RD03, and I'm right clicking and I'm going to do activate. So activate is fairly new. What it does is it takes me into that file just like I did in Exchange, but all the references and all the other files that are shown show up and still stay there in gray. So I'm going to pick activate here, and what's going to happen is everything, all the other files are going to be showing up in gray, but now I'm in this file and I can maybe go ahead here and edit this line so it cuts through one of my pipes or cuts through one of my structures. We'll have to see what options we have for this line. If I try modify element, let's see, I'm going to try insert vertex. That'll work. I'm going to do an insert vertex on this sanitary line, and I'm going to move it here so it'll go ahead and go right through somewhere around S200. Let's see if we can get our handles. Yeah, we'll move it there. So obviously you would not do this on a actual project, but this should force it to work for that profile. So once I'm done moving that line, and you can, since we're moving it, we've already broke the whole thing anyway. You can have it go through a few structures. You can do whatever you want. And then when you're done, if you right click and hold down your right mouse button, you can pick deactivate default, and it's going to take you right back into your drainage file. Sometimes I haven't always been able to get away with using the activate command. Sometimes I've had to go into the file individually and then reference the drainage file manually into that. Sometimes the activate does cause some crashing. But now that this does cut through definitely one of the pipes, he actually cuts through two of the pipes, I should be able to, I'm going to make it real obvious here. Let's make this, let's see what's a good color. Make it a pink color, and I'll temporarily at least make it a huge weight. And I'm going to hit apply, and let's see if it'll show up on there now. Now I don't know if we have to reopen the drainage tool here. And it could be that let's go ahead and set the label as well. It could be that level is, well, default's not going to be off. So we'll copy it and we'll put some text in here too. And I'm going to make that text a lot thinner weight so we could read it, but I'm going to make the height 5 and 5. See if we can get this to show up and get the tool to work. And I'll try apply again. I'm not seeing anything additional. So default level should be on. Everything else is on our default level. So I'm going to put all the levels on in our drainage file. And it may be that I have to reopen or even regenerate the profile. I don't see any large thick pink line here. I don't see any any text that's in pink. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and close this profile. I'll delete it and just rebuild it and see if we can get it to work. So I'm going to go back here to Component, Profile, Delete. I'm going to delete the only profile I have. And then I'm going to go back to Component, Profile, Add. We'll add Pro 200 again. And I'm just going to reload. I'm going to do a File Open. And I'm going to reload those preferences. And there's a lot of times you do have to delete and redo these profiles. Excuse me. And that's why you want to go ahead and make sure you save those files out there. You could have multiple depths, but you would probably have to break that line that's in our UTEX. Well, it's only picking up the level. So you would not be able to have multiple depths along there because it's only picking up the level. The tool is assuming that everything's 2D and you're just taking a best guess on the depth of it from the existing ground. A better way to do this, if you wanted a little more flexibility, would be to use the GEOPAK tool under, I want to say it's under Cross Sections, Draw Ancillary Features. This will allow you to take a survey chain which would have multiple depths, or you could create a survey chain with multiple depths, and it would allow you to do it that way and follow the survey chain, which would have the 3D embedded. That would be the better way to do it. This tool will plot on top of profiles. It'll also plot on top of cross sections. The tool that we're using right now just does not have that flexibility. So the other tool here, it's under GEOPAK, Road, and then it's under GEOPAK Road. Of course, I just lost track of it completely, but it's under Cross Sections, Draw Ancillary Features. Even though it's under Cross Sections, it does also work with profiles. That one will give you more flexibility when you have the different VVHs and some potholing was done out there. The tool that we're using here just does not have those options. And it hasn't worked yet, so let's see if we can get it to work. So I've loaded up all my preferences here. I want to make sure under Display I've got the miscellaneous utility crossings. I'll turn on the label, and I'll probably go ahead and change the color here again. And then we'll go ahead and do a data point for this. We'll DP over to side here, hit apply, see if we get anything there. I do not see it picking anything up there. We'll take another stab at this here in a moment. Let's look at our miscellaneous utilities edit. Utilities, did I not add it? Maybe I didn't add it. Or maybe it looked like it did and did not. We'll save that. All right, so now it's looking at the 10 file. It only allows for the one offset there. Close, yeah, save. Let's try apply again. Are you all getting it to pick it up at all?
Yeah.
Okay. So you did something similar here, John Mark, just had it cut through. And then mine's not.
Click apply on that one.
Oh, is that? I bet you that's it. That's what it is. Yep, thank you. All right, so that's okay. This is also part of learning. And what I just learned is putting it in the list and saving it, that's not good enough. That's not enough. We got to do something different. So where I messed up, the mistake that I made here, is when you go to your miscellaneous utilities and edit those, adding it to the list here. So what I did is I had it down here. I added it to the list, shows up here. I closed out of it. It says, do you wish to save list changes? And I hit yes. So when I did apply here, it didn't work that other time. I went back to the list and I had to hit apply to get it. It doesn't seems like it doesn't stick. So make sure you hit apply here no matter what. Once I hit apply and then hit apply on my profile, now it's showing up where these crossings are. It's annotating excuse me, where the tin file is coming from. It's annotating the elevation. And you can have as many of these existing utilities as you want here. It'll only plot one at a time. But you could have multiple lists. You can pick the other one and just hit apply again, and then it should work perfectly fine. So it looks like the gotcha on this tool, or at least got me anyway, was you got to hit apply there. So while it seems to be working, I'm going to go ahead back into this file, and I'm going to move that water line. You don't have to do this. I'm just stubborn. I'm going to let it work one more time, hopefully. We'll put it up here somewhere. Move it around a little bit. Now that is on the level water B underscore EP. So we'll go back to the main file, and I'm going to go back to my editing for the miscellaneous utilities, and I'm going to add another one here, and I'm going to pick water B. Water B underscore EP, all by level. We'll say that water main, we'll let it be a foot as well. And we're going to say we think the water main has a average depth of 3. I'm going to click add. I'm going to click apply, whether I need to or not. Just play it safe. I'm going to close this, and let's see if I can go ahead and get the water line to plot. Should just be able to hit apply. And yep, there's the water line. We're good to go now. If we don't like that, we don't want that at all. If we don't want the text, we can untoggle the text, and then we can just plot the ellipses as they show up here. It looks like it's working okay now. All right, sorry about that. Make sure you hit apply on this. It looks like even though these show up in the list and you get prompted for saving it and you can click yes, it doesn't necessarily stick. So make sure to hit apply there. So it looks like that's working now. I'm going to go ahead, and seems like it's a good one to save. And I'll just go ahead and resave those preferences, and then I can reuse them whenever I need to. If you are saving these preferences and saving some of these items as we're going through the class, might be a good idea to just save them in a generic location, not underneath your project. If you've done that, if you've been saving them underneath your project and you think that you might need to reuse them and they'd be useful to have, go into your recycle bin, and you might want to go ahead and bring some of those 220 projects you've been deleting over the last couple of days. You might want to bring them back to life. So some of these files that we're building for these preferences, although they may not be perfect, it's a pretty good start to have. So I would hang on to those if you could. All right, so we're finished up with our profiles. Once again, and maybe this is just to make it stay in my memory, on that miscellaneous utilities tool, even though you've got them showing up in the list here, make sure you hit apply, and then close out of the dialog. And that should save it and should get it to work like we had success here. We really don't need to extract the Chapter 8 files or the Chapter 9 files. For what we have here with our Chapter 7 files, that should be good enough to use and take a look at Chapter 8 here, which is this Navigator and the global editor. So everything we've been editing or working with up to this point in time, we've been going to component area edit or add. We've been going to component node edit, component link edit, or component now profile edit or edit list. Well, there's better ways to get at this information. Now, one of the ways we saw and just previously in the last chapter was when we do a profile, we did have this link profile tab, and it showed the link IDs, the from node and the to nodes, and it showed the inverts and let us modify it. So it had a pretty good editor there for our links built into the profile. But you're not always going to want to create a profile just to be able to get there and edit the links in a more convenient fashion. So if you take a look here on the top of page 8.3, we can go ahead and take a look at our Navigator and also take a look at the global editing tools that are built into it. The true exercise starts on page 8.2, but that involves opening the drainage project, going through the GEOPAK Road Project Manager, opening up the our preferences and setting all of those items like we've been doing. So we don't need to go through all of that again. We'll just stay here in our Chapter 7 files, and this should work just perfectly fine for using the Navigator starting here at the top of page 8.3. If you go to your drainage project and click on Utilities, first option there is going to be Navigator. And the Navigator on the left-hand side, it has two icons that they look like little spiders. The first icon there is All Networks. The second icon is Active Network. So if you click on All Networks, you're going to see all of the areas anywhere in the GDF file. That's the first little icon. If you click on the second icon, you're only going to see areas that are in our network, and it's also going to sort them in a little bit different order. I haven't been able to determine. Let's see if we can. It looks like it probably sorts them in order station. Oh, never mind. I was going to say it sorts them in station order from highest to lowest, but once you get to S202, that all falls apart. I'm not sure what order it tries to sort them in if you're looking at the active network. Now for us, really the all networks and active network option is pretty much the same. So on the left-hand side here, you pick all networks or the active network. And then to the right of that, you have areas that you're viewing. Then there's an icon for inlets. Then there's an icon for nodes, which includes inlets and junction boxes. There's an icon for viewing links or pipes. There's an icon for viewing profiles. And then there's an icon for culverts and routing. But we don't have anything for that. So if you were to look at the node icon, the third one, and we looked at the nodes that are in here, that's where you're probably going to see some of these nodes that we had, even though I deleted them. If you still have S204 and 206, those or whichever ones I deleted, they probably show up underneath all networks. So like I have an S205 here, and I have an S206, and they're not connected to my network at all. So when I'm looking at all networks, those show up. If I'm just looking at my active network, those shouldn't show up because they're not part of the active network. So you're going to see less nodes with this second icon picked here at the top of the Navigator. And what you can do, if you need to edit any items, this Navigator is a lot like the older GEOPAK coordinate geometry Navigator. You can just double click on any of these items, and it's going to take you right to a node, or it's going to take you to another node or an inlet, and if you double click, it'll take you to an area. So it's going to be a lot more convenient for you than going up to component area edits, component node edit, link edit. It's going to be a lot more convenient for you. You can also add new ones from this dialog box. If you look over on the right-hand side, there's a single little piece of paper icon. It says Add Item. If I want to add a new node, I click that, Add Item, and then it goes to the next available item number and lets me add a new node or a new link or whatever. So you probably will very rarely use the component menu to add and edit items once you're aware of the Navigator. So that's one of the functionalities of this Navigator tool. If you're not sure what particular item is on screen, down at the bottom right there's a little ID icon, and if you click ID, it'll let you double click on whatever item you want to identify. But it only lets you pick whatever item you have pressed across the top. So if I have area pressed, I can't click ID and go click on one of the nodes. It'll only let me click on single click and let me find an area. It won't let me go out there and find a node. So it's sensitive to whatever's pressed across the top here. So it's a little bit picky as far as that goes. The icon just above ID lets you rename items. The second icon lets you modify items. That's the same as double clicking on an item. And then there's a little red X, which is delete. And then delete works a little bit more the way you would expect it to. If I'm left clicking and highlighting S202 and I click OK on this alert, S202 is going to be the one that goes away, not S200 or whatever the first one is. All right, so it's got some pretty good functionality. It has highlight and window center. And then it also has here in the middle of page 8.3, step number 5, this global editor tool. So if you go up to the view menu from Navigator, the typical view is Navigator, and then there's another view called Global Editor. And that's going to add a second half over to the right-hand side. And then depending on what type of element you're looking at, it's going to show all the different variables for that particular item or items if you have more than one highlighted. So the example shown in the book is we're looking at all of the nodes. So we have all networks pressed, we have node pressed, and we're highlighting all of these nodes here. And what they want to change is the minimum depth. So I'm highlighting all the nodes on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, I see the different node parameters. And I'm left-clicking on node minimum depth. And what I'm going to do is apply a new value of 3. And there's two ways to apply these changes. There's apply edit with confirm. If you pick apply edit with confirm, it's going to ask you for each one of the nodes, do you want to change the minimum depth? And actually they're all already set to 3, but it'll ask you, do you want to change it for S200? You can hit yes or no. Do you want to change it for 201? You can hit yes or no. So if you're not sure or you don't want to change absolutely every single one, when you pick excuse me, apply edit with confirm, you're going to have to confirm or deny that change for each one of those nodes or areas or links. If you're absolutely sure that's the change that you want to make, maybe I'll change the minimum depth to 1 for all of these. If you're absolutely sure, you click apply edit no confirm. And that just, however many you have highlighted, that changes it right then and there. So if I look at any of these nodes now they're all set to a minimum depth value of 2, or excuse me, of 1. So your safest bet is the apply edit with confirm. But if you have 20 nodes or 20 links or however many items in that GDF file, you're going to have to go through here and click yes or no for however many you happen to have highlighted. If it's 10 or 20, then you're going to get this prompt 20 times. You can do a cancel on all of those by hitting escape, but you're still going to see 15, 20, or however many prompts. So you can use this different view here, this global editor, to edit the elements one at a time. You can also double click on the elements to edit them, or you can use it to edit multiple items at one time, which is really the intent of the global editor. Is we want to make some variable, in this case, the node minimum depth, we want to make that 3 for all of these. So that's the main function of the Navigator. The first primary function and primary view is to go in and just see what we have in the network. And we can double click and we can edit and create new items from the Navigator. The secondary function of this and secondary view is the global editor. It lets us go in and edit, let's say, links perhaps. So maybe we want to edit all of the pipes here, and we want to change the minimum rise to 2 feet for some reason on all these pipes. And we can say apply edit, no confirm. And if I went through now and looked at each one of these pipes, whether I double clicked on it or looked at it in the Navigator, and I looked at the constraints, now the minimum rise for all those is 2. So I think you'll use the Navigator a lot. It's going to be a real handy tool for you. It's a lot better and a lot easier than going to that component menu every single time. It's just going to be a lot easier to work with. So we kind of show you the hard way to do it in the first few chapters. Not that those are that hard, but after a while, you're looking at quite a bit of time when you have to keep going up to that component menu. All right, so that's the Navigator. If you flip over to page 9-1, this Navigator also has a querying mode where we can find out additional information about our network. So in Chapter 9, and we can just stick with our Chapter 7 files here, it should work perfectly fine. You're going to see on page 9-2 the same set of hoops that we've been stepping through every time we extracted a set of zip files. So we don't have to do step 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Those are all the GEOPAK Road Project Manager set of steps that we have in the book. We haven't been going through those and don't have to. We also don't have to do 6 and 7. We already obviously have our drainage project open here. So what we'll do is we'll jump right over here to 9-3, and we're still sitting in here in the Navigator, but we're going to check on this checkbox here down at the bottom that says query. And that checkbox will work whether you're in the typical Navigator view that is shown here in the book on excuse me, 9.3 step 3. It'll also work with in the global editor mode. So it should work in either mode. What this lets you do, you're going to see when you check on query, you're not going to have anything added to the right. It's going to be added to the bottom, and it's going to have the different query options. So what we want to do is a couple of queries here. In step 4, we're going to look at nodes that have a ponded width greater than 8 feet. So I'm going to click on only the active network, and I'm going to click on inlets. Inlets are the only ones that should have a ponded width. A junction box or a node doesn't. So I'm clicking on inlets. That's what they did here in the book. And I'm going to check on query, and I'm going to say query type is going to be values, where the condition is greater than, and the variable is ponded width, and we want to find ponded widths greater than 8 feet. And if you click apply query, and it may be a little different than the book because they had a different set of files, obviously. You're going to see that S207, 202, and at least the ones I see are 203, they have a ponded width greater than 8 feet. And that would, of course, been one of the warnings and the messages we got when we designed and analyzed the system. So what this is saying is we're not meeting criteria for those particular curb inlets. Using the storm frequency we have, which was only like a 3-year or something if I remember correctly, at that storm frequency, the way our system is designed right now, these are going out past the gutter, that's 1.5 feet, and they're going out more than half the lane, which would be another 6 feet. So really the query here probably should be more than 7.5, which will give you one more. So picture this driving, you're going down the lane, you come up and you get near the curb inlet, and you've got water out in more than half the lane. We don't want that. So this is a good tool here for analyzing and querying our database. And then if you look here in step 5, we have a few other queries we can try. So which pipes have a velocity greater than 3 foot per second? So we're going to click on the link icon, and we're going to say it's values, and we want to see where the value is greater than, and it's already set to velocity here, greater than 3 feet per second. Click apply query. It looks like that's probably going to be all of them. So let's try greater than 8 feet per second. That's only going to be 3 of them. So where I see that this would be real handy, if you take your drainage manual and look at the criteria that you need to meet for a good design, this is a good, nice built-in way to check it. You're not supposed to have anything, let's say, with velocity over 10 feet per second. You click apply query, and you've got pipe 211 that has that problem. We had velocities, we didn't want anything less than, going by memory here, which is always dangerous. We didn't want any velocity less than 2.5 foot per second. So if we change that to minus 2.5 and hit apply, we've got a few that have velocities that don't meet the minimum. Now that we were still getting within our reports. So when we did our network analysis here, we did get that in our reports that came up. We did get that as part of our messages, but the search or the query tool might be an easier, more comfortable way to check that if you want to, or another way to check it to make sure that you thought you got rid of all these messages here. It's another way that you can check it and make sure everything's good to go. So that's back here on our Navigator. So we had 3 that were greater than 3 feet per second. Let's see which pipes have become bigger than the maximum rise. That's going to be none of them. Our maximum rise on the pipes was 5 feet. So I'm going to say that would not be a value, that'd be a constraint. And we're going to say maximum rise. Which pipes are greater than the maximum rise? None of them. No elements meet that. What pipes are less than minimum velocity? That's another good check. That's those same 3. They're all less than 2.5. What pipes are less than the minimum slope? That's pipe 203. Which pipes are greater than the maximum slope? That's none of them. So this is a real good tool for asking questions about our data and seeing if that data is good to go. What we'll look at after lunch is going to be chapter 10, which allows us to build some very sophisticated reports about just about everything in the database. The report tool, I think they've done a real good job on it. It lets you pick the areas, the nodes, the inlets, and the links, and you can create a custom report that includes just about any imaginable value that you want to have in that custom report. So it's a good tool. It's pretty complete. We'll take a look at that after lunch here.